It's extremely difficult for me to judge a game that I know extremely well. It changes your perspective on things. You understand why things work the way they do. But I've always been pretty open about that from the word go. Ever since I started doing these reviews, all the way back with, I think it was Age of War, Shadow of Mordor, Age of War, something like that. And ever since we codified the current system, which actually started with Oblivion, I've been very open and honest about the fact that these are only so objective. There's only so objective I can get, and there's only so much I can take, because I can't be an expert on everything, right? I lack the capacity. And so some games I will judge in ignorance, and some games I will judge with knowledge. This is Mega Man 2. I've speedrun this game extensively. So, where do we even start with this? Well, one of the things I've been saying for many years now, by the way, if I keep looking over here, it's because I'm checking. Some of you may notice our webcam has been kind of freezing up periodically, so if you see me checking over there, it's making sure it's still on. One of the things I've said for a long time is the idea that a work, maybe it's a painting, maybe it's a song, maybe it's a play, maybe it's a show, maybe it's a movie, maybe it's a book, maybe it's a game, is better if the people involved are really passionate about it. They really care about the product they put out, right? Now, I've heard this about my own show, actually, that I tend to be more enjoyable to listen to and that I produce better content when I'm covering something that I'm really into. I don't know how true that is. I'm just sharing the fact that I have heard that before. But I've held that opinion for many, many years. It's not like something that's made by just professionals who are just doing it for the job can't be good, but it's less likely to be good. Whereas something that people really pour their heart and soul into, you tend to notice, my opinion. Why is this relevant? Mega Man 1 didn't sell all that great. It didn't sell terribly, but while there was some push to do a Mega Man 2, the actual producer involved in the project and the studio in general just said, no, we're not going to deal with that. Okay, that sucks. But then one of two things happened, and I've heard different interviews which say different things. I'm not sure which one of these things is true. But either the studio said, okay, tell you what, we'll greenlight the project if you agree to keep doing your other work simultaneously on other games, or they didn't greenlight the project at all, and instead several of the developers just started working on it in their, spare time, working on it on their own time, in other words. Either way, the same result happened. These people ended up working on two games simultaneously, Mega Man 2 and whatever else they were working on, because Capcom was putting out plenty of stuff at this point in time. This is when Strider was coming out, for example, and they really wanted to make this game. And that's the key point. Every interview I've read, every article I've seen has all indicated the same thing. They really wanted to do Mega Man properly, because the feeling in-house was that Mega Man 1 kind of failed to do what they wanted to. It was a tech demo, as I myself pointed out, and they really wanted to try and turn that and refine that into something better. I've talked about the two types of sequels from Actually, let me walk that back. There's two types of sequels. There's direct sequels and indirect sequels. That has nothing to do with this. And then there's these two types of sequels. I don't have terms for these. So you've got sequels that are iterative, and you've got sequels that are innovative. This is easy to explain. Star Wars A New Hope is episode 1. Just bear with me. Empire Strikes Back is an innovative sequel. It is not Star Wars 2. It is a new thing trying to branch out in a different direction. Return of the Jedi is Star Wars 2. It is A New Hope, but better and improved. That's the whole concept of a straight sequel. Let's call it that, a straight sequel, right? As opposed to there we go. Let's call it that, a straight sequel and a divergent sequel. I'm going to try to get used to that terminology. Making up loriums on the fly, or doing it live. So, the idea here is they wanted to do a straight sequel, because, like I said, they just wanted to do Mega Man, but better. In many ways, this probably set a bad precedent for the idea that, they would just keep doing this forever. And, well, it's one of the things that was most commonly complained about by reviewers in most magazines at the time. The Mega Man games got stale. Somewhere around 4 or 5 is what most people agree on that. Whether that's true or not is up to you. I actually rather like iterative design. I like the Pokemon series, after all. And to redefine that once again, iterative design is when it's the same thing, but a little bit different and a little bit better. And I do think the Mega Man series does a little bit different and a little bit better, at least until about 6. We'll discuss after that when we get there. So, we need to do Mega Man 2. We want to do an iterative sequel, a straight sequel. We want to do it better. We got to get the 8 robot masters. We got to improve the weapon design. We got to improve the level design. We've got to add more Wily stages. We've got to add more flavor, add more continuity, add more visual design, add more everything. And it really is just Mega Man 1, but better. The thing is, for the longest time, I've been curious of how well Mega Man 2 would review. I've wanted to review this game for years now, because I've sped-run this game. But that doesn't make it a good game. I've also sped-run Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, for God's sakes. So, whether or not this actually qualifies as such a good game, well, that depends, doesn't it? And so really going through and really analyzing it kind of opened my eyes in several ways. I'm just going to give this away right now. This game scored a freaking 40 on the golden number. If you don't know that, what that means that's really high up. That actually makes this our 4th highest Mega Man game in general that we've ever reviewed. Below X1, X2, and 11, if you're wondering. That's impressive. That is damned impressive. And I forgot how well designed this game really was. Oh, sure, it's got its flaws. Quick Man Stage. Quick Man Stage is easy to bash because it relies heavily on trial and error and memorization in order to be able to go through it. And both of those are kind of problematic. It's also instant death kill, which is problematic. And even if you know exactly what you're doing, and I showed this on camera, even if you know exactly what you're doing and have it all memorized, the window for error, the margin of error, is very small. If you make any mistake, you're dead and you're gone. And that's Quick Man Stage. Here's the thing. While that is a bad thing and that is negative, what's weird is they also do good design on top of that. If you pay attention to Quick Man Stage, we start off, and it's like, okay, we go down, and there's a couple quick enemies, which are just kind of there for flavor, really, let's be honest with ourselves. And then you drop down immediately into the first laser section. Because of how the layout, so they make it so that you can only drop down on the right side of the screen. And then if you drop straight down, you drop into a semi-safe area, a spot where a laser won't show up for a few seconds. You see the first laser, and you have enough time to process the second laser's coming. If you have good reflexes, you dodge out of the way. If you don't, you die. And it's like, okay. And then you start right back up here, and you're right back there again. It's 2 screens away. So that's actually pretty well designed. If you're dropping down and holding left to any extent, you can actually land up in actually safe territory, free from the death of the laser. The next drop down is very easy to bypass. You can actually just race right through if you just drop straight down. And the third one is similarly easy. So the game does several things very quickly and efficiently there. It gets across the idea of the instant kill beams, and it also gets you cautious about going downwards. We kind of know what we're in for every time we do one of those drops in Quick Man Stage. Also notice that that's the halfway point of the stage. 1, 2, 3... 4, 5, 6 screens total. 7 if you count the opening screen, which I don't. So 7 screens if we want to count everything. That's it. Zhunk. Seconds. Done. Then there's a breather period. We fight these enemies who kind of light up the area, and once you defeat them, the light goes away. That's just a minor little thing, which I'm only mentioning because it's going to come up in a minute. And then we see a pit open up before us. No matter whether we've killed the enemies or not, we can see this pit coming, and we can see where we're going with it. It's like, oh, okay, we know what's coming. So now we've been prepared, and then we have the bad Quick Man section, where you have to have very good reflexes, very good timing, and have memorization and trial and error to get through it. However, throughout that section, throughout that section, there are little energy pickups, which you cannot get normally. They're all traps. Unless you're using Flashman's weapon to freeze it. Flashman's weapon will not last the whole thing unless you take a specific route to get certain power-ups, and those energy refills actually help you to get through the whole thing with nothing but Flashman's weapon up. Okay, that's interesting. That's kind of neat. Most of the other stuff is just straight up traps if you're doing it otherwise. But the other interesting thing is the respawn point is right before the flame guys, not before the pit. The significance of that is that means the flame guys can drop energy, which means you have a method to regain energy before you go down. That helps to mitigate it. I do still think it is an example of what I would consider bad design. But you can see how it's not terrible design. You can see how there is still thought and effort and design put into it. And then you have 2 quick enemies, which are pretty easy, and then you're at the boss. Bam, bam, bam. Very quick stage. Quick Man himself is actually kind of brilliant. He lunges at you and is very likely to hit you with his first lunge. But then he kind of runs into a wall for a little bit. Because he's Quick Man. He's still got the momentum going, right? So he's still kind of going that way for a bit. Until finally he goes over this way. And if you know him and you know his patterns, you can actually maneuver around him pretty easily. I had one person who I was watching me do this saw me absolutely destroy him first try, and they're like, oh my god, was he that easy? No, Lord just knows this fight. Like I said, I've spedrun this game. I made this horrible mistake. Like I said, this is so hard to judge this game. I blazed through Quickman Stage so quickly that I realized I forgot to talk about it. So what I did was I reloaded the game and just started Quickman Stage again. So I'm okay, here, let's actually talk about the stuff as it's happening, because I'm an idiot. It's just the speedrunner reflexes. You don't understand. It's so muscle memory. Now, I'm not going to go through every single stage like this. After all, I did that on stream, and the ruminations are a summary of the stream. But I wanted to get across that idea because at its worst, that's not true. At its second worst, that's Mega Man 2. Good ideas and good design mixed with a little bad design. That's still really good, and that surpasses, let's be honest, most games in general. So that's still damned good. And then we have the stages that are just straight up awesome, which is most of the rest of them. A lot of the stages follow a very particular cadence. Introduce a concept, escalate the concept, escalate the concept, bridge, new concept, escalate, escalate, bridge. And usually during those bridge sections, they'll do something to allow you to recover, which brings me up another thing. One of the problems Mega Man 1 and Mega Man X3 have equally is itemization in terms of item drops from enemies. Now, enemies can drop items. I mentioned this. Health ups and energy ups in both the small and the large quantity. But in both cases, they were pretty unlikely. I think, again, it was 1 in 8th chance back in Mega Man 1. Whereas in this game, it's closer to 3/4 chance to drop something. And then you have a 1 in 4, I'm right. It's a 1 in 4 chance of being a large and a 1/2 chance of being small. I'm saying that wrong. No, I'm right. 3/4 chance of being small. There we go. Sorry, get my odds out correctly. Now, don't quote me on that because I'm not sure about that off the top of my head. I probably should have looked that up before I said that. The relevant point, which I can say with certainty, is you have a high chance of getting a drop, and that drop will then have a decent chance to be something worthwhile. And that's extremely useful because what it does is it encourages the player to keep going. It is a form of a recovery mechanic. If you've been taking too much damage, or if you've been experimenting too much with a weapon, or you've wasted too much weapon energy, now you're inclined to keep using your weapon energy and to keep pushing forwards. Cool. That's pretty neat. Then we have stages like, so I want to talk about Airman, Metal Man, and Heat Man. Those are the 3 big ones. All 3 of those follow the exact same theme to them. And you're like, what the hell's the similarity between those? Metal Man, Heat Man, and Airman all want you to pause, but not for too long. At every stage of those levels, they want you to think about your jumps. Unlike Quickman, which is go, 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 go. And unlike some of the other stages, which is more methodical or ponderous, not in a bad way, but like Crashman stage, for example, is very sit and wait kind of design. And then we go and you wait for your moment and you jump. That's true with the ladders. It's true with the platforms. But in those 3 stages I just mentioned, which I don't feel like saying for the 4th time, each one of them has sections which are safe, but there's mechanics in place to encourage you to keep moving. But not too fast. It's like a slowly escalating lava wall, which is always kind of there, but not really pressuring you so much as encouraging you to keep moving forward. That's why the slow. In Heat Man stage, there are many safe platforms so you can judge how to make your next jump. And you can just wait there, except you've got the little rotating enemies I can't think of the name of. They all have really weird names. I mean, the boo beams, for God's sakes. Anyways, you've got these rotating cylinder guys who are slowly honing in on you, just kind of encouraging you to keep moving. Or the propeller guys earlier in the same stage. In Airman stage, we've got the guys who pop out of the ears, just kind of slow up and move on top of you. Or you've got the chickens or the birds, which occasionally come by and drop the eggs, which are encouraging you to move forward and not to just stand in one place. And in Metal Man stage, you've got the conveyor belts, which actually encourage you to keep moving and not just stay in one place. Because even for the jumping sections over bottomless pits, those are actually relatively easy jumps. But you're not supposed to just sit there and think about it. You're supposed to be like, okay, hang on, and then jump, right? Is that making sense? So there's a constant flow trying to keep the player moving forward through the stage. It's a much more threadbare, but nevertheless extant version of the director in Left 4 Dead 2, for those of you familiar with that. And this is done throughout the whole game. A lot of thought is put into the specifics of enemy placement and terrain utilization. I'd love to just sit here and explain it all, but again, that's what the stream's for. I swear I break down this a lot more in detail on the stream. Even though it was only a 3-hour stream, I mean, this is like a 20-minute game, so what do you want from me? So, if you want the full no really breakdown, that's what the stream is for. So we go through all those stages, and there's one bump. So Quickman has some issues, and let's be honest, Heatman has some issues too. The Yoku blocks, which is just... The funny thing is, on the one hand, they're designed well, because they don't rely on the trick of forcing you to jump up over them. On the other hand, they suffer the same problem that we had back in Iceman Stage, where some of them will spawn based on the horizontal axis, the x-axis, and so sometimes they don't spawn in the time they should, and it's very unlikely, but it is possible to literally have a pattern that you can't surpass. And then you have to go over a fairly lengthy section of instant death, followed by another fairly lengthy section of instant death. Now, it's doable, but what's really funny to me is the part of that pisses me off most is the section right before it. The section that's over the safe area. That's the hardest jumps right there, I swear. That's not great, especially since you have to redo this whole section before you can get to that, or the entire stage if you die and game over before you can get to it. Not the greatest. And of course, Bubble Man Stage is instant death, the stage. You start off over a bottomless pit, and the first thing you have to do is avoid the frogs, which have an angle of attack which is inclined to interrupt your jump attacks onto them. So you need to be a little tricky about that, or use metal blades. Okay, cool. Then you go ahead and push your way through that, and then you have the blocks. This is probably the worst part of the whole stage, because you have these blocks which drop very quickly. By the time they have started dropping, it's too late. You cannot recover, and I showed this on camera. So you have a few frames, less than a second, to be able to jump off of each of these and get through that. Okay. Then you have a decent section which basically tutorializes how the water mechanics work, where you kind of have that massive buoyancy while underwater. Good. Then you have the spike section. Now what's funny about this is the first fish enemy is this nice big huge enemy, and because you've already been tutorialized on the buoyancy, you might think, I'm just going to jump right over it, in which case you hit those black things at the top of the screen, and you now learn those are instant death spikes. That's actually a decent design. But then we have a huge section of just, the rest of the stage is just instant death spikes, followed by instant death pits, followed by the easiest boss in the game. It's not great, but at least effort is still, once again, just like Quickman Stage, at least effort is put into designing it to actually make it so that the player has tools in their disposal to deal with it. It's the easiest way to explain this. I think Delbach came up with this, so forgive me if I'm saying the wrong name, but someone on chat said this. The easiest way to think of how Bubble Man could have been a full negative garbage awfulness is all you have to do is picture it with Mega Man 1's control scheme. Because Mega Man 2's control scheme is very tight and very precise. It is the Mega Man standard. It's why I give most Mega Man games a plus to control. It's why I call Mega Man genre precision platformers. Because you have tremendous control over the specifics of your height and your jump and your movement, and it's all on you. And that is part of what makes a Mega Man game a Mega Man game. The jumping has to be a certain style of this style, and then there's the shooting, of course. So then, well, I've been talking a lot about the stages. How are the bosses? Most of the bosses are actually pretty good, even though they're very simple. There's still things that, because they are based on you and your actions, like Heatman does nothing, really, until you hit him. Metal Man just kind of occasionally shoots a metal blade to encourage you to hit him until you attack him. Crash Man kind of just runs back and forth and occasionally throws a bomb until you hit him, and so forth and so on. Most of the bosses lean on you to push them to do things, and then they react to you, and then you have to react to them. It's basic, but it's still good for the most part. And then, of course, there's Airman. Insert meme here. Airman's interesting because at first glance, you see the pattern of the air shots he shoots out, and you think, oh god, how do I dodge that? All of them are dodgeable. But some of the windows on them are very tight and very precise, and that's one of the problems. The other problem is his shots block yours, so you can only really attack him after he's jumping across. And if you're fighting him first with Buster Only, or doing a Buster Only challenge, like I like to do, it can take a while to bring him down, especially if you have cranked up difficulty. Speaking of which, I should probably mention the difficulty. This is the weirdest damn thing. I was not able to find more information to explain this. Mega Man 1 in Japan received several complaints about the difficulty of the game, of Mega Man 1. Nintendo hard, right? So they decided to, in addition to polishing the game up for Mega Man 2, they decided to add a difficulty option, which is not on the Japanese version. What? It's also very lazy difficulty. It's one of the other things this game does wrong. All it does is change the damage values. So, you hit harder, and you get hit less. That's it. Anyways, I suppose I should talk about the weapons, though. I mentioned metal blades in passing earlier. Are we still on? Yep, we're still here. Cool. Because a lot of the comments I tend to get is that Mega Man 2's weapons suck because Metal Blade is overpowered. Allow me to professionally disagree with that. The Metal Blade is good, but the specific 2 reasons why there's actually 3. There's 3 reasons why it's good. One is it has a lot of energy. You have tons of shots of the Metal Blade. Reason number 2 is the octo-directional thing. You could shoot it in all 8 directions, which is very useful. Reason 3 is because it's slightly larger of a hurt box than your shots, your pellets, your lemons. Now that's useful, but that essentially it's not overpowered. It's just very useful. Now, what would make this bad is if the other 7 weapons sucked, but they don't. Mega Man 2 has some of the tightest weapon design of the Mega Man series thus far. Each of the weapons has a use and actually changes how you attack, rather than just doing a slightly different variant on the pellet shot. Mega Man 3, by contrast, which we'll talk about when we get there, has terrible weapon design. But 2? You've got the waves, which shoot a nice big wave up in front of you, so it hits a huge swath and allows you to attack upwards. You've got Quickman's thing, which is essentially a machine gun, which allows you to also hit a larger vertical area directly in front of you in exchange for no longer being able to hit long distance horizontally. You've got the wood shield, which at first glance you think, oh, it's the worst shield ever, but that's because it's not really designed to be a shield. You can maintain the shield forever as long as you don't move, but if you move or shoot, you can shoot it in any of the 4 cardinal directions. And it's a big hurt box that just travels across and absolutely destroys whatever it's in its path. You've got the chargeable Heatman weapon. The basic attack does decent damage. The middle attack does decent damage. The large attack does an absolutely stupid amount of damage. It also takes up a huge chunk of up energy. You can literally one-shot Woodman with the fully charged Heatman shot. So that's your charged shot is what that is. That's your artillery. Then you've got, what am I missing? The Flash Stopper. This is obvious. Freeze. This is something that would become a standard of the series in several ways, and for good reason. It is actually a utility weapon first and foremost. It's, hold up. I just want to deal with this section. Then you've got, what am I missing? We got Bubble Man. Okay, Bubbles Man weapon isn't great, but it does actually have a use. It's really good at taking out anything that happens to be on ground level, especially stuff you can't hit with your basic buster. And, of course, it's useful for leading you in Wily 3. Is it Wily 3? No, it's Wily 4. In Wily 4. I'll get to that in a minute. What am I missing? Metal Man, Airman. Oh, yeah, Crash Bombs. Crash Bombs are the other artillery. You only get, 9 shots, I think, of Crash Bomb. But each one of them hits like a truck initially, and then also has the explosion, which also hits like a truck. It is the, I want whatever I'm looking at to die. Screw that guy in particular. Every single one of these weapons has at least some use, and the worst of them, Bubble Lead, is still something that has some value. Just a little bit, though. I don't want to defend Bubble Lead too much, but the point is, there's only one bad weapon in the game, and that's pretty good ratio. 7 out of 8 is a pretty good ratio, I think. So, let's talk about Wily 1. The music in this game is awesome. Oh, I should talk about the stage, too. In all seriousness, though, they did something quietly brilliant, which would then become a trend in the Mega Man series. We see Skull Castle, Mark 1, and then it outlines where each of the bosses are, and we see a path outlined. That path roughly coincides with the path we'll be taking through the stage. And all of a sudden, we have visual continuity. Now, I've talked about this many times. Visual continuity is extremely important in game design, in my opinion, because if you have bad or no visual continuity, the player can have a hard time feeling where they are. It might not even be a conscious thing, but it's just kind of you're just kind of going through levels or screens, and there's no connective tissue between it. There's nothing that makes you feel like you're descending through a cave or moving through a fortress or going up a tower. Instead, you're just kind of going through screen after screen, right? This map, combined with the fact that you actually have visual design in the stages of the Wily Stages, adds tremendous visual continuity. It really feels like you are on approach to the castle, you go up the ramparts, and then you penetrate in, and then you start actually going down and down and down further into it. And this culminates at the end of Wily 5, which is the refights when you fight the Wily machine, and then you plummet. And the Wily 6 starts with you in mid-plummet. That's visual continuity right there. It's also technically a plot twist. Oh my god, we're falling. There's another stage. Oh my gosh. But I was talking about Wily 1. Wily 1 actually does wonderful things right. The first thing it throws up against you is something you can't bypass without use of the items. Item 1, 2, and 3. You're probably wondering when I was going to bring these up. Item 1 just puts a hovering pad which goes up. Item 2 gives you a rush jet, let's call it what it is, which goes forward for forever until it runs out of energy. And item 3 bounces along until it hits the wall and then grapples on the wall and slowly climbs up it. All three of these have use. Item 1 is useful for when you just need to cross a pit or something like that. It's actually mandatory at a certain part of the game. Item 3 is very useful for going up walls that you cannot climb or scale otherwise, like this one. And of course, Item 2 is useful for going across Heatman Stage. So, all of these items... Item 1 and Item 2 are actually mandatory for beating the game. Item 3 is debatable. And I'm counting glitchless, obviously. So, first thing you encounter is a big old bunker-looking thing. You cannot jump over this. How do you get over it? Well, Item 1 or Item 3 will enable you to go upwards. So, okay. And then, depending on how many issues you've had with that, well, guess what's after that? It's one of those little things that shoots out the squiggly enemies. I forget what they're called. Those are effectively refill spots, and the game uses them consistently to allow you to farm them to get weapon energy and health and occasionally lives back. So it's like, okay, cool. Refill up, and what happens? You have to go up another one. Okay, we know what we're doing now. Then we have to go up a much more narrow one. Okay, so this is a little trickier, and you could screw this up and run out of energy. It just so happens there's a refill guy right over here, so you can't get soft blocked here. Now, this is important because this screen is actually soft lockable if that guy wasn't there. In fact, they even made it so he's just off screen, so he will respawn if you go all the way to the right and then all the way back. So you cannot get stuck there because otherwise you can't go back up left, you have no weapon energy, and you can't go up right, you have no weapon energy. But you can refill on him so you can progress. So you scale, you scale, you scale. Use Item 1 in order to get across the empty gap, but it's okay if you fall. There's a platform down there. Mega Man 2 doesn't lean on instant kills nearly as much as 1 or, frankly, some of the other classic games as well. There's not a lot of instant deaths in the Wily Stages. So if you fall, you can recover and get past across. You go up, and then we have the instant death section. The only instant death section in Wily 1. It's when you're fighting the Mecha Dragon. First, you are penetrating in, you go forward, and then this auto-scroll takes over. Most players die immediately to that because they're not used to the pacing change. And then this giant dragon pops up behind them. How many of you died just from shock? Like, ooh, and then died as a consequence of that when you're first playing that? I'll raise my hand on that one. What's funny is it's not a hard fight and the jumps aren't hard, which is the point. It's not unfair. It is instead simply something that's designed to be a moment. So you get through that section, cool. Now we're in Wily 2. Wily 2 isn't great. There's not much to talk about in Wily 2 other than the fact that it once again mandates the usage of Item 2 and Item 3 or 1 in order to progress. Cool. Then we fight the Guts Dozer, which is hysterically easy, but kind of fun. Yeah, that's cool. We're cool. Then we go to Wily 3. Wily 3 is very short. You have a quick plummet down a refill section. There's an underwater section, which the whole reason Bubble Man Stage exists is to give you an idea how to maneuver through this section. And then you have a drop into a spike pit where you have to go left, and then right, and then left again very quickly. It's not sometimes true. You can actually get to a perfect spot and just go down the middle if you know what you're doing. But you're supposed to go left and then right and then left as you're going down. Cool. It's pretty easy to die there because these are instant kill spikes. However, if you game over, it's okay because you start over at Wily 3 as long as you hit continue and not stage select because this is not Mega Man X8. So, yes, that's right. This 1989 or whatever this is, 88 I think actually, game surpasses the X8 game. I'm just saying. So, you fall down. This is not great. The only and then at the end there's a gotcha trap. There's these two spikes on the left. So if you're anywhere if you're not fully to the right when you drop down, you die there. But then you fight. Okay, so you fight Guts Dozer. Okay, that's cool. So, or no, I'm sorry, I missed that over. Sorry, you don't fight Guts Dozer in Wily 3. In Wily 2, you fight Guts Dozer in Wily 3. You fight the stupid wall thing in Wily 2. This is kind of a whatever. It's much harder on Buster only. But if you have any of your weapons available, there's actually a lot of things and multiple weapons you have to fight vertical enemies, things that are above you, so that's one of the reasons that's a cool thing. Anyway, so we move on. We hit Wily 4. Wily 4 can go to hell. It's the worst level in the game. Now, it's still not terrible. I've played worse levels in Mega Man games than Wily 4. Wily 4 is the purple one, if you're trying to remember it. It's the one with the crash bomb thing at the end, if you're trying to remember it. So Wily 4 starts off with gotcha traps. There are portions of the terrain which are not collision, and you just fall through them. Most of those you can just figure out. Some of them send you into one of them sends you into an instant death spike, and the others just kind of waste your time or can send you back to the spikes. This is where Bubble leads you where you need to go in order to be able to avoid those. However, nothing exposits that. Nothing actually tells you about that, and it's very easy to eventually just kind of be really paranoid about how to progress. I'll admit as a kid, I didn't know about the bubble lead thing until someone actually told me about it, so that's just whatever. Not great design. Not terrible, but still not good design. Okay, so then we have the section where you have to be on the platforms with those rotating heads constantly coming at you. And this is kind of a weird combination of some of the motifs of the earlier themes of the stages. Because you have to wait, but you also have to keep moving. You have to wait on the platform, and you have to be jumping, dodging the enemies, and attacking them, or just trying to avoid them, or just use Leaf Shield, it's much easier, in order to try and survive this whole section. Doing this Buster only sucks. And then you get all the way down, and you effectively have to use item 2 one last time. Okay, all the way here, we're fine. Then we fight the boss. That boss can go to hell. You have 9 shots of Crash Bomb. There are 7 enemies. They can only be hit by Crash Bomb. And so you have 2 spare shots. There are 2 blocks actually defending them that have to be destroyed. So if you use your energy perfectly, you have 9 shots, which you need to defeat this boss in one go. This is not great boss design. That's in addition to the fact that there's a lot of lag on this area, especially if you're playing this in the original NES, and they hit like a truck and are kind of hard to dodge, and the only way to navigate around the room without taking up the blocks is to use item 1 and or a combination of item 1, item 2, and item 3. Not great boss design. It's no wonder that one of the strategies that was usually suggested back in the day, including in Nintendo Power, I do believe, but I know this is in the strategy guides, was to break all the blocks, die on purpose, go back, refill your weapon energy throughout the stage, and then try to fight them, normally, which is a much easier thing. You can also use the pause trick here, which I'm not going to mention. So, okay, that's whatever. Then we have the boss refights, which is dumb, and then the Wily Machine fight, which is dumb. And then we plummet, and we get to one of the greatest outro stages in Mega Man history, and I mean that. Some of you know that I have a concept called no music. Now, if you don't know what that is, I'll tell you what it is right now. No music is when you have a thing. Sorry, I'm checking something over here real quick. No music, okay, cool, is when there is no music playing in a video game and it's bad. Like there should be music playing. This is a great example of how to do no music properly. There is no music playing for the final stage. It's just this weird quiet as you plummet and plummet and plummet and plummet down to the ground. And then there's these acid drips, and you hear this weird echoey for each one that falls down. They also do a ton of damage to you. And so you're like, okay, we got to maneuver through here and avoid these and just kind of just do what we can to get through this. And you get through the whole section, and it's very eerie. It's a perfect combination of deadly without actually being dangerous. Because it's very easy to navigate this section, even quickly. But you're supposed to be put off. Like, you've just defeated Wily. What is this? What's going on? Why is there no music? What's with these things? Oh, God, that hurts! And so now you're on edge. Now you're cautious. Okay, and you try to move through. And you get to the end, and you're in the star field. And then Wily turns into an alien in front of you. It's like, holy crap. This is all a great moment. This is brilliantly designed from a story axis. And it's one of the reasons why Mega Man 2's story is so good. Because even though there's no real narrative here, there actually is a narrative in the way how it's presented. Which, again, goes back to what I've talked about many times when it comes to Mega Man and the story axis. Then you have to fight the last boss. This kind of sucks. This started a trend that continues up to like X8, I think, where the boss is weak to one of the worst weapons that you can use on him. I think this is just a long-standing tradition in Mega Man games. Bubble Lead, which does this tiny little thing in front of you, is his weakness. So you have to jump up and hit him with it while he's floating around. He does a very static pattern. He just does this. Or hang on. Yep, nope, there we go. He just does this figure 8 over and over and over. It's very simple. He also shoots you semi-periodically, so there's a little bit of an offset in his pattern. So the longer the fight goes on, the harder it gets to dodge. I don't know if that's deliberate or not. What I do know is that it kind of sucks to fight, and Lord knows I was stuck there for a long time back in the day. This is the reason why it's a good thing that your weapon energy refills, by the way, when you game over and you hit continue, because there is no other way to damage him other than Bubble Beam. I keep saying that, Bubble Lead. This is in Pokemon lore. Nevertheless, once you beat him, it was just a hologram. I love this. Some of you have probably played video games before, especially in the NES era, in the 80s, especially late 80s. There was a really common trend for a lot of games where you'd fight... what the heck? Okay. I'm sorry, one moment. I can't believe this. I'm kind of busy here. Okay. So are they going to do that? I'll get back to that. Lost my train of thought. Bubble is the only way to heat it. Oh yeah, a very common trend in NES games especially, this is also true in arcade games though, is the last boss was a demon, or a monster, or an alien, or a monster, demon, alien, monster. And it was really common for a game that otherwise seemed normal to drift that way. See, Bloodborne for another example of this. But in all seriousness, Contra, Ninja Gaiden, most of the space, I can't remember, Gradius, I want to say? A lot of those games did that. So this was kind of a jab at that. Yeah, no, it's just Wily with a hologram. Then we have a cool ending, and we walk out at the end. This is a surprisingly well-constructed game, given that it was smashed together in about 3 to 4 months, which is mind-blowing, especially when we consider that this was not their full-time job when they were doing this. I'm actually shocked about this. One moment, please. There. Gosh, I apologize for that. I'm still dealing with the flooding issue in my living room, which I'm super not happy about. Could you have waited like 10 minutes? I'm almost done talking because I don't have much else to say. This was a surprisingly well-constructed game. I'm legitimately shocked at how well designed this game was. But of course, I do have one last thing to say. I just want to put a pin on this, put a cap on this really quick, because this game sold really well. Not counting Mega Man 11, which I haven't actually double-checked the figures on, this is the best-selling classic game ever in terms of physical sales. That doesn't count collections and the like. So it doesn't count the PS2 and GameCube collections. It doesn't count the collections I was playing for this very review. Nevertheless, it's so easy to understand why it sold so well. After all, on the one hand, the Mega Man formula is a good formula. Even Mega Man 1 was a competent... that's the wrong word. Was a promising game. Mega Man 2 fulfilled on that promise and actually made a good game in addition to being, an interesting concept, right? But the biggest thing they did, and I want to stress that I'm not joking about this, is they brought in Mark Erickson to do the box art. Now, you probably don't know that name, and that's fine. He was kind of a legend in the mid to 80s. He did a lot of box arts for a lot of video games. And he was a good artist. You already see where I'm going with this. Because Mega Man 2 had such a catchy, visually attractive, colorful box, many, many kids and adults looked at that game and said, that looks like a fun game for my kid, or that looks like a fun game to play. I can state personally that I actually picked up Mega Man 2 for the first time, and again, this is my first Mega Man game, at the rental place, because I looked at that box art and I said, that looks cool. I'm actually curious if any of you can say something similar. Because of that initial attractiveness, because of the fact that it was actually plugged, because they actually got some Nintendo Power thing going on, and in Japan, they did their very first help us design the Robot Masters concept, something that they would continue for quite a while, up until at least Mega Man 8, I believe. Because of the additional marketing, despite the fact that the studio didn't support Mega Man 2 at all, it sold extremely well. Go figure. And thus we have the Mega Man franchise that we know today. Tomorrow we're going to look at Mega Man 3. I'm a lot more worried about that one, because I know what you're thinking, but Mega Man 3 is awesome. We'll see. Next time, I should work on these segues. That's the end of my show.